Okay, we'll see who comes on here. Yeah, what's this? Let's see here. If I can get rid of that. All right. So this is Friday, and this is our second podcast. We now have a live YouTube channel, so I'm excited about that. It was a little work. Thank you so much for all of you who subscribed to this is my business channel. So this is what we talk about pretty much is business and financial strategies. I run into this all the time, and I got an overwhelming supply of it yesterday, last night. I was on a mastermind call for business owners, and they put me in as the leader for one of the breakout rooms. Okay, so I was listening to these different, very diverse business owners, right? One guy is in the extermination business. Another guy was a landscaper. Another guy was a handyman, and another guy had a real diverse dual business. He made signs and what do you call it? Promotional T-shirts and the thermals for like beer cans and stuff like that. And he marketed them at rodeos, and then he also did rodeo photography and videography, including using drones. Okay, so they're all on, and I'm trying to like offer suggestions from my background and people that I know that are in the similar businesses, like the handyman guy, right? There's a handyman guy here I used to go to church with, and he's doing really well. And I learned from him that in the wintertime, they transition to like doing Christmas lights, right? And I'm like, okay. Now I have a relationship with LED City in North Dallas, and they make these LED strip lights that you can program and are different colors, and using those for Christmas lights instead of the old-fashioned kind of Christmas lights. And they can be up all year long, and you can just change the colors. Like you could have them, red for Valentine's Day, green for St. Patrick's Day, orange and black for, I guess just orange for Halloween, whatever, right? And you could use that or market that to clients instead of the traditional Christmas lights, right? Just things like that, just throw out there. But it got to a point where it wasn't, the people weren't like, oh yeah, I can jump on that. I can do that. And so I just like asked, well, what do you think you could do? Right. And a lot of it, part of it is they think about it for a minute, and then they would say, well, I just need to, put more effort in, or but a couple things, like the guy that does the rodeos, that same guy, I'm like, dude, talk to boxing promoters or MMA promoters, because they need the same stuff. The promotional T-shirts they throw out between rounds, of the fights to keep the audience engaged. Because there ain't nothing worse than having people just walk out, because they're like things are taking too long and they're getting bored, right? And I've seen it happen. Okay, so the point is that there's that what it is that mind shift from into a entrepreneur mindset where you're always going for it after it. The same guy here in Houston that does the handyman or trash removal business does a podcast. I don't know if it's every day, but he does a podcast like midday, and he gives little hints on how to do stuff, right? That he gets called on to do a lot as a handyman, right? And it gets him more business because when people know what he's talking about. Okay, so that's one thing. All right, now I just had a call today. Somebody in that's starting their own contracting business, and they actually liquidated their 401k from a previous business or job to start their business. Okay, so now they got nothing, right? But they got a new business, right? And so we, I had him on the phone, and we're going to talk about them. We can set somebody up, and he's like 43 years old, and we can get him there. Okay, we can get him there, even though he's starting at zero. Okay, and there's some things that I talk about a lot, and that's that synergistic business strategies. And what is that? Okay, that's using your same knowledge base that you've developed over the years in your previous jobs or your current business, and using it for either as a partner or starting other businesses that support your current business. So I've seen many cases of this. Okay, I used to work for a company that had the guy was in the food safety business, and he had chemicals, cleaners, degreasers, sanitizers to so these produce warehouses could clean them up and get rid of the pathogens. Okay, and they would also had consulting to help them pass their Primus inspections because they had to stay compliant to stay into business. They also teamed up with Primus, who does this work and has them they actually help do the inspections for them. So I represented that company, so I got to see it firsthand, having multiple businesses with the same knowledge base supporting one industry. Okay, so I got to see that firsthand. Okay, now I was in the drone business. I got to see all kinds of things you could do with a drone. That Part 107 license. There's a company here in Houston that teaches underwater welding, and they teach them how to fly drones or use the autonomous little submarines, right? The underwater drones, right? And so this is, give a example. A welder gets a contract to inspect water towers and maintain water towers and pipelines, oil and gas pipelines, right? So that person can fly the drone to find the leaks, then break out his cutting torch and his welder, get to work, make more money. Another thing, an auto mechanic, right? Learning to weld. Now he can do some additional work besides just inside the engine on semi tractor trailers. Okay. And, he increases bottom line. Okay. So for me, when I'm showing somebody how to make more money, then I can do something with them, financially. So with the strategies that I have to help them, make more money, they can, show them how to save their money, structure it right so they pay less in taxes and like right now, they get tax deferred. And then later, after they, afterwards, when they're ready to retire, they're pulling that money out. Uncle Sam's going to want their pound of flesh, right? Well, you set up a strategy where they supplement that so they're not losing money. Okay, the money they're saving now is going to grow enough and to be able to offset what the government's going to take in taxes later. Okay, that a lot of people won't going to bother taking the time to put that strategy together. Well, that's what I know. It's how I've always done it, and that's how I was trained. Okay, so there's all kinds of things, and there's the ability to get access to capital. And I ran into a big argument with these financial planners that they're going to put you in something that may be more aggressive, may grow faster, right? But you're going to get zinged if you try to take that money out before you're 59 and a half. You can't have access to that money. Okay, and that's hard, and it happens all the time. Talking to this guy, liquidated all of his deferred plans, is called qualified plans, so he qualifies for a tax deduction on the contribution. He took that money out, paid that 10% penalty, paid the taxes to start his business. Now he's starting at zero. Okay, but that's okay. We can help him. We can help him build, get that going and catch up, make up for lost time. So last time we had somebody on, and it was great to have her on to ask some questions. And if you are watching this live on YouTube, go to the comment sections and you can join via Streamline and come up on stage here and we can have a little conversation. But some things that, I started doing this podcast because I was on a coaching call, a business coaching call, and they asked me, like, what's my product? And I'm like, well, whatever they need financially, right? So if you go on the, if you're on here, you can see on the comment section, I put in the link to my website, mybusinessyyourbusiness.info. So how I got to be here, I've spent 10 years in the SEAL teams, 15 years in the Navy total. And when I got out, I didn't know enough. I knew I didn't have enough knowledge as far as business and finance. So I started self-educating myself. And I learned about a debt roll-up strategy. So I put that in place and use it to get out of debt. And then I answered it in the paper as a debt management consultant. And long story short, I wrote more business for that company than anybody else had done for them in a year and a half. My first month, they made me the manager. And every time I showed somebody how to get out of debt, they started looking at buying a house. So I got my real estate license, started doing mortgages and real estate. And I would do a lot of work helping people get it together so they could get a loan. Either help them, look at analyze their credit, see what they needed to do to bring their scores up, or I would, look at their assets. Okay, you need to, see what they could do to save more money so they could meet the reserve requirements, so they could qualify for the house or the loan that they wanted, the better loan, the lower interest, reduce their payment or pay off some debt. All these things I would do for people. And then I came across a company, the Score Navigator. So this is the guy that started created the credit bureaus for the scoring model for the credit bureaus. he created a consumer dashboard, and that consumer dashboard is Score Navigator. So you can go on my website and there's a link to it, and there's like 3 different levels. The one is like, like $59 a month or something, or $49 a month, something like that. And you get access to all 3 bureaus, and then I can help you, quicker, more, when you see what you got, more quickly get your scores up. Okay. And then once you get your scores up where you want to be, then you stop the 3 bureaus, just get the 1 bureau. So it's like $6 a month. All right. And now you're monitoring your credit, but you're understanding things and how it works. It'll tell you, looking at from where you're at to where you want to be. So if you got a under 600 score, but you want a over 700 score, it'll tell you exactly what you have to do. Okay, that's on my website, and it's Score Navigator, so you can click right through it. And then I had somebody that had started a small business, and he had one of his employees who wanted to do a health savings account. Well, none of my providers offer that. I found out that Wells Fargo will set you up with a health savings account, but you got to have somebody administer it. So I'm thinking, I bet a payroll administrator would do that. So sure enough, this guy was using Gusto, and Gusto not only will do your payroll administration, they'll do HSA administration, and you can get on with them as in a group health insurance plan. Okay. And if you want to do a 401k plan, they'll help you do that too. All right. Now, I don't do 401k plans, but I can help, figure out, how to do their asset allocation based on their risk tolerance and what they have, what they can commit to, what they can put away. And then from there, we can see what we have to do to get them the rest of the way. Okay. So just, these are some of the things you'll find on my website. There's other, there's a link to the SBA for veterans who want to start small businesses. There's the Quick Mount Heroes Initiative. This is a franchise where they waive the franchise fee, and you're mounting like flat screen TVs into businesses, right? So I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, so if you did 5 or 4 installments a day, 5 days a week, right? That's a $7,500 a month income, gross income to the business owner. Okay. And then I'm like, got a relationship with LED City, and there's a great promotion for LED City. They have this great video wall technology. And so if they mounted one 10 by 20 video wall in a church or event center or a nightclub, whatever, right? Sports bar, all right, they would double their income. Okay. So that's a lot of the kind of things that I do. Now, you're also going to see on my website a whole section for the hair business. Now, I know from past experience that they're adding wig making to the repertoire of services for a cosmetologist or a barber can drastically increase your income. 15 years ago, I had a girlfriend who did this, and back then it's $450 a pop, and she had 13 of those clients. Now it's like $800 on the low end and like $2,500 on the high end for these prosthetic wigs. And the insurance companies cover the cost for women who have alopecia or gone through chemo and radiation and lost their hair. So that is a big income boost for somebody. And guess what? Those health insurance companies will refer clients to them. All right. So that's something that somebody in that industry. So in the hair business, there's no 401k or pension plan. If they don't save their money, they'll stand behind a chair the rest of their life. Okay, so and usually when they're younger, it's like hard to get their attention. They got so used to spending that money. It's cash business, right? So it goes through their hands like water, and or they're not saving it efficiently. I know it's in the Rio Grande Valley. They save their money, but they save it under the mattress. I mean, they save it. They're putting it in the checking account, right? Well, there's some challenges with that. If you have over $250,000 in the bank, it's not covered by the FDIC. Okay, so having other alternatives where you have protection, you have a better rate of return, and you have liquidity, and that's where these cash value policies come in. Now, I got on a banter on LinkedIn with some guys that are, they're securities licensed, and they're beating up on the Index Universal Life. And I'm like, well, it is, it all depends. When the market's down, that floor between 0 and 2% looks really good when the market's down 30%, right? And with what's going on with the Fed raising interest rates and the war going on in Iran, the market's pretty volatile right now. So that's something that you want to consider, right? You feel people that have these Index Universal Life products, they're not sweating it. Okay. Then there's the infinite banking strategy that uses whole life. Whole life's got a bad reputation. Doesn't get a great rate of return, but they came up with these companies called mutual companies. What does that mean? Well, every policy owner is like a shareholder in the company. And when the company makes more money, they share the dividends. So with the dividend, they're looking at, just under 12% return. Well, you plug that into the rule of 72, right? How long does it take for your money to double at 10%, let's say, right? It'll take you 7 years to double your money. Okay. So that's, and it's protected. Creditors and litigation, nobody can sue you in a divorce. If you got your money in a policy, that's how O.J. Simpson was able to still financially take care of himself after his wife's family sued him or took him to court for wrongful death. They won, but they couldn't touch his money because he had it in his variable universal life policy. Okay. And so there's, that's a big advantage. Okay. Especially in this litigious society, people are suing each other left and right. What other things can we talk about? These on my website, there's going to be some videos on there on the family banking strategy, and then there's the synergistic business strategy videos on there. The infinite banking. So my background as a debt management consultant, they thought, oh, this guy's get this. It took me a year. Like, how are they doing this? I mean, I could never figure out how to get somebody completely out of debt, including their mortgage, without increasing their monthly payments. If you did a debt roll-up strategy, you had $100 extra, but that's $100 extra, right? You can get somebody completely out of debt, and save them a lot of time and money. And then there's something called the pill method. But that's, what that is adding that extra principal payment, right, mid-month. Okay, so you're not doubling the payment because I have these numbers memorized. If you got a $338,400 mortgage at 5% interest, your principal and interest payment is $1,886 a month, but only $500 a month goes toward principal. So if you add that extra $500 a month mid-month, you eliminate a whole month's worth of interest, and you'd be able to pay that mortgage in like 12 years, or actually 15 years, right? And then if you also implement a debt roll-up strategy, depending on how much other debt you have, you can get that. I can, 12 years, get that somebody completely out of debt. But that's still, if that'd be $600 extra a month in that scenario. Well, if you did these infinite banking strategies where you actually take that debt service, overfund a whole life policy, and then borrow that money out of the whole life policy and pay your mortgage on time, you're not going to accrue interest because you're replenishing every month. So the interest is never going to accrue on the debt, but you're building up. You get full credit for that $1,886 a month in that whole life policy. And in this scenario, 9.2 years, there's enough money in that policy to borrow out and pay off your mortgage completely. Now you're paying yourself back, and you still earn that guaranteed rate of return on that borrowed money. And then what you do pay it back, you'll end up getting that higher rate on the money that you replenish into the policy. And so these are strategies. And then, so if you're doing this for a business, you got multiple businesses that you get started that are paying you, enough, that you're making serious cash flow on these businesses and running it through your policy, you're significantly increasing your tax advantage income when you want to retire. Okay. So these are, if you just start talking about whole life or index universal life, these people that are these securities license agents and advisors will eat you up. Okay. Now I had all the licenses, Series 6, 63, 65, which is an advisory rep license, right? And then the 2008 crash happened. And all these people that I had in these variable products, their money tanked. And they discontinued. I had chargebacks I paid back for years because of that. And then the advisors just couldn't guess it right. They had the money in the market, when it was down, and out of it before it came, and they just couldn't time the market like they used to after 2008. Now things, I guess, are more stable, but there's been a solid increase, and they'll tell you that. They think, they're going to tell you that, yeah, it's on fire. I mean, it's been a insane 400% gain since 2012 in the market, right? But what goes up has got to come down, and then you got this situation happening. It depends on who you listen to. This war in Iran is, getting. First, it sounds like we're just wiping them out, right? But that country the people haven't taken their country back yet. Okay, they're still under that oppressive government, and they're still doing everything they can, and that's a region because of the terrain and because of the aggressiveness and the attitude of the people there. They don't just lay down. They don't just give up. Okay, the people that are allied with the United States haven't taken the country back yet. Okay, so, and if it drags on, there could be problems. Closing up the Strait of Hormuz is going to affect oil and gas prices, which affect your cash flow, because now oil and gas costs more money. Your electric bills cost more money, right? Your transportation costs more money. Your food costs more money. Okay, and it's causing inflation. All right, so what does the Fed do to curtail inflation? They raise interest rates. When they raise interest rate, guess what that does? That causes the cost of money to go up for businesses that it can cause scarcity. All right. I mean, it can, next thing you know, your phone bill's going up, your food's going up, your energy's going up, all these things are going up, right? And it's tightening, they tighten the money. Okay. So you can't spend, it's all supply and demand. They believe that if they make it so you can't spend more money, then the supply side will go down. Right. I lived through that back in the early 80s. That was happening. And that advisor, interest rates were stupid high, right? Like 20% on a mortgage. Okay. And you're like, what? Yeah. My first house, I had two houses, VA authorized. I took over two VA foreclosed properties, the loans, and they were 10% interest. All right. And that's what it was back then, right? It wasn't until after 9/11 that you started seeing rates, going down below 6%. 6% was like the bottom for a long time. So yeah, and you never know what it's going to be. Same thing with taxes. Do you think taxes are going to go up or down? They spend a ton of money in the flying the jets and having the aircraft carriers and the Navy ships off the coast of Iran. That's expensive. Okay. And it's, running up the deficit. So what do you think? Do you think taxes are going to go up or down? So having your money protected from taxes gets to be more important. Okay, the more things go. So we're running into like over 30 minutes on this call. Doesn't look like anybody's going to join, but I'm going to do this every Friday. All right, I welcome somebody to come on and we can have some conversation like we did last week. But with this, hopefully somebody got some information out of this that might be able to benefit them. And I hope to see you next week. All right, bye-bye.